Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of Music and Mixing. I am DJ Michael Joseph, and joining me tonight is none other than John Young. Welcome, John.
Hello, thanks for having me on tonight.
It's been a while since I've had a guest, and I just thought, why not hit the top of the list? You know,
Excellent, excellent. So I will go get someone much more important than me at the end of the show. That's tonight. There's someone
no,
really
you are
charming.
perfect for tonight's topic. And our topic tonight is about mentors, being one or having one. And I know in my life, when I started thinking about this, I thought about people who are my mentor.
Sure.
And then I started thinking about, wait, I guess I'm a mentor to a couple other people too. So you can be both, you can be one. But with Disc Jockey News, it in itself is your kind of your way of mentoring in a way, I think, is part of your way of giving back. Would you say that?
Yeah, that's really kind of what it was about. Is we were in the industry in the '90s and we did a lot of things and it made a lot of money and gave us a lifestyle. Then you get to that point where you want to start to kind of give back to the industry that's been so good to you. And that's really kind of how we evolved into the Disc Jockey News. And in time, we started the more the newspaper was great because it was monthly, but it wasn't reaching everybody because there's people who don't like to read. So you go into doing video because it can be more instantaneous. You can get information out there much quicker, more information over a short period of time, what have you. And that became that tool to reach DJs who could never go to a convention because there's a lot of people out there. And I like to look at Dan Carpenter as kind of the person, although Dan does go to conventions, but Dan Carpenter, who has a day job, he's a full-time teacher, and needed some sort resources. And this became that way of kind of putting something out there to help, whether it's mentor or what have you, people like that.
Right. Normally on this show, when I do it, I usually take the beginning part and let some people come into the chat and answer questions and do shout outs where they're at. But I don't want to do that tonight. I kind of want to jump into what we're talking about tonight. I want to stay there. So those of you who are in the chat tonight watching, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you being there. If you're like, I don't know if you know or not, John, but we get people from all over the world that watch this show.
Exactly. Yes. I'm looking,
so
seeing the
I wanna-
names pop up, and we've got folks from Australia, from Mexico, from Canada, from Florida.
Yeah, that's what I said in a post a while back. I said, we even had people from the exotic land of Jacksonville, Florida.
Precisely.
But I definitely want to thank everybody for tuning in. I appreciate all of you guys. I think it's a good topic tonight. Like I said, on mentoring, being one and having one. Mine as a DJ has really been a long journey on that, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But John brought up something right when we tuned on to get set up, and I never thought about this. The difference, actually what a mentor is, because in my mind, I kind of knew what it was. And I've made a little list tonight that I want to talk about some qualities that I think are important. But John, you brought up something about the difference between a mentor and an influencer. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. I think one of the things when you talk to DJs, they talk about, all of my mentors, especially if they've kind of been going in that direction and thinking that concept. But I think people confuse mentor and influencer, or a mentor and somebody who's giving them content and information, because I view mentorship as a two-way street where I'm going to find out what your problems, where you're struggling, and give you some advice to help that area, or ask you questions so you can come to the conclusion. But there's an engagement and there's a back and forth. That doesn't mean that I can read a book that somebody wrote and they might influence me or educate me or something to that effect, or inform me. But I really think a mentor has to have that connection and that back and forth in order for it to be a true mentor type relationship.
You spoke earlier about back in the 90s when you started with all this Disc Jockey News, and that was an era that was maybe at the very beginning of the internet. So mentoring was a lot different then than it is now, would you say?
It certainly was. And a lot of the mentoring that we did, and there were people that we were working with, but that kind of evolved out of our local or regional DJ meetings, or going to a national meeting where we would actually sit down in Las Vegas. So it was there. It's just, it wasn't as convenient to a point as it is today.
The back and forth that you talked about between, the mentoring, the influencers, the difference between just taking in content that someone else has as opposed to you and that person having a back and forth. Um, what level or line do you think you would have to cross in that back and forth in this digital age, like through messaging and stuff like that? I mean, like, I think you can, but I just want to kind of get your opinion on it, that just people maybe messaging back and forth, it can be mentoring. You don't necessarily have to be there physically. I mean,
Correct.
do you feel that can be that way?
Oh, certainly. I think that communication is what's needed, whether that's a digital communication, a Zoom communication, or a text message, or obviously face to face, which doesn't happen anymore. This is the new situation. But there has to be the communication, because I need to get to know someone that I would be able to give them some advice. If the idea with the mentorship is to give them some advice or to give them some guidance, and if you're not going to find out about who they are a little bit, or where they're struggling, or what they need, all I'm doing is being, basically just a kind of a bully, just saying, go do this. Well, wait a second, but it doesn't matter. Go do this. That's not a
Right.
mentorship. That's something.
That's a bad internship or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to take a step back to being both a mentor and having a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about a little bit that my journey of having a mentor was a little different, because I would say the first person in the DJ world that kind of mentored me was someone who was younger than me. He was a DJ that had a lot of equipment and was experienced and would let me tag along, lend me equipment if I ever needed it, stuff like that. And then, years down the road, someone else saw me DJing and met me as a person. And that's how it was. It wasn't just like, oh, he's got skills.
Yeah.
I got to know that person. And this is like one of the big things that I'm going to be talking about here in a bit when it comes to quality, is that we built a friendship. And then from that friendship, he asked me would I like to come work for his company. And then he got me jobs in some of the biggest clubs in the city, like, no, literally the biggest club in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And took me under his wing and taught me a lot about blending and mixing and stuff that maybe I couldn't pick up just from watching.
Sure.
And I learned a lot, and we're still friends to this day. So that journey of mentoring thing, it doesn't necessarily, at least from my view, doesn't necessarily have to have boundaries of an older person and a younger person.
Yeah, I think that age thing is huge, because people tend to think of the mentor being that wise person sitting up on the hill that, we're going to climb the mountain and go up there and, hey, tell me the meaning of life type of thing. And that's
the bearded wise man.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just not the way it is.
Right.
Because there's times where my kids in some areas can mentor me in the right areas of computers or gaming or what have you.
They've helped you with your TikTok game, right?
Yeah. Wait a second. No, I don't have that. But
tell me about, like I told you about my story a little bit, how some of the mentors that I had. Tell me about some of your early mentors.
Some of my early there was my very first business was a lawn mowing business that I started at 14 years old, and I got to a point where I needed to get a larger lawnmower. And our local banker was always kind of in this background. He was kind of a mentor, and our conversations generally were him asking me questions. It was very seldom did he give me answers. He was always asking me, trying to have me find the answers to my questions by taking me around. But as I look back at it, he actually just passed away a couple of years ago, but we had from about 17, 18 years old until 30 some years roughly of a relationship. And it wasn't always, we were always there, but it was like at different times. That was the type of relationship. And it was never I would go into, especially about 5 years ago, I went to him and spent a whole day with him. And it was almost like that climb up the mountain. And I was looking for some answers for a couple of things. And I didn't get answers. I was getting questions. And what do you think about how would this look like? How would you do this? And what would you do that? And here's a book. And what would you think about that? It was a frustrating day. But after the day, I was able to step back and look at something and say, this is a direction I should be looking type of a situation. So early on, he was one. Getting into the DJ industry, there really early on wasn't a mentor in this industry, because it was such a cutthroat industry at that time, in that late 80s, early 90s type of a thing where everyone hated each other. So it became a difficult situation to find someone there. So my next mentor type was a bank president who I also had mowed lawn for. And as I was building the business and such, and he was able to give advice. And he was actually a little more on the giving advice as opposed to asking me questions and having me flesh out the things. It really, in the DJ industry, it really probably was into the early 2000s, maybe somewhere in that ballpark, maybe the late 90s, when I really started to find people that were those mentors within the DJ industry where we could have conversations and I could bring my struggles to them and share and find out, what their thoughts were on fixing these problems, what have you.
That takes me perfectly into like one of my bullet points here is areas of mentorship. And I have 4, business, DJing, production, and life. And I even have a side note on life is stress. Because you can have a mentor that just helps you deal with life.
Yes.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be with the business, but like you said, you might have someone that strictly helps with the business side of things.
Yes.
You might have someone that is a DJ oriented person. You might have someone that is good with a production of like events. And they can be different people in your life influencing you or vice versa, you influencing them. And that really takes it into where I talked about earlier, where the friend thing is really important, getting to know the person as opposed to, like you said earlier, the influencer that just puts out videos and all you do is watch them or read a book or an article, and you can't get that two-way. With the business DJing, production, and stress, because I'm kind of trying to still keep this DJ oriented, where do you see that those lines sometimes get crossed for the positive, to where you have someone that has nothing to do with the DJ world helps you in the DJ world? Have you had that experience?
Oh, certainly. And I think the personal, the mentors I've had in the personal world have probably done more for me in the business world. And it was just because of keeping your head in the game, keeping your mind, your focus, and keeping a lot of us as mobile entertainers and small business people, depression's real, and mental health is a struggle for a lot of us in this. And having that person who could see when you were having issues or you were starting to show signs of anxiety or stress or what have you, those things do. The solution there carries over into your business, and it helps you be more successful in other areas. I think one of the big things, though, that in that personal side, as you were talking, you kind of mentioned that, the first thing that jumped into mind is seasons of life. We have seasons, and during these seasons, things evolve and change as we go through them. And mentors aren't a lifetime. Most of the time, they're not a lifetime person. The gentleman at the bank that I went back and forth with, we probably in that time frame had 6 really good in-depth conversations, many small ones, but really 6 good ones. He was a mentor ongoing, but he really wasn't someone that I was talking to all the time. I had a pastor that I was working with when I was youth pastoring, about a 2-year window, maybe 3-year window. And at that time, he was a very active mentor in my life. But that season changed, and then comes the next person or the next situation. So those personal things will bleed over, because pretty much everything we do, if you're putting your heart and your soul into it, it's you.
Yeah. That's the weird thing that, I was talking to someone a couple weeks ago about the DJ world, someone that doesn't know anything about the DJ world. And I was talking to him about just the simple things that you have to stay up on, like posting and liking and all the stuff, just social media alone. You have to make posts for each day, make them good ones, good pictures, whether it be videos or whatever, just trying to keep your keep your profile up so people can see, expand your horizons. And they said, oh, so it's like you got to hustle all the time. And I said, well, it is kind of like that. Yeah. I said, it may not be in the DJ world. I may not be DJing, where a lot of us grow our business through just networking with other DJs. I know I get a lot of my jobs, especially with the club and bar scene. The way it works, you get jobs by being recommended by other DJs, because most of the places it's a DJ who's hiring the DJs for other nights. Like it's a DJ that DJs Saturday nights and we need someone for Fridays, and he will hire them. The manager will say, just bring someone in, make sure they're reliable. And that's as far as it goes. So our entire side of things is done around networking with people, constantly having that back and forth. And it could be something simple is I had a friend the other day has this incredible business, does like very large productions, very large corporate events, called me up the other day. He was doing a wedding and half of the family was from overseas and they're not going to be here because obviously can't travel. And he was asking me about streaming stuff and how can I get this to where I can stream it for them to see. And for me thinking like this guy's got it together. He's the person I would go to and ask about stuff. He's calling me up on a Thursday going, man, I got a wedding in 2 days. Can you help me? And it was kind of neat to see. It's just two people that even though sometimes we've jockey for the same job, trying to get the job over each other, you have to be able to open up and help and like you said in the 90s, not be so cutthroat and be willing to let your skills and abilities and professionalism stand and be respected. Steve Martin always used to say, be so good they can't, was it Steve Martin? Yeah, it was Steve Martin. Be so good they can't ignore you. So that's kind of a way of being professional, doing what it does, that you can be out there and talking to people and have relationships that are true and honest and not fake. And that's a big, tough thing. That one of my qualities on my list there for DJs is be a friend before a mentor. Don't just have someone and just think you're just going to start telling them how to DJ and how to do stuff. Be their friend first. Yeah. Before you try shoving advice down their throat. I always say that is be their friend first. Find out what they want to learn, because if they're hanging around you, there's a reason they might want to just watch and learn. And that's fine. They could be there for friendship and nothing to do with the DJ world. So being friends, and that I want to take this to a perfect little side note here. I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat. I'm only right now getting to see the YouTube chat. I didn't sign on for the other one. So John, if there's other chats coming in, let me know. I might take a break here in a minute and grab that. But they're talking in there about, and I didn't think about this prior to it, that the chat in the video is a form of mentoring because we do have the back and forth. I never thought about that.
Oh, certainly it is.
They also mentioned there about the chill room. For those of you who don't know, John started this thing back when COVID started, the lockdown started, where he wanted to have a place where DJs can go and just talk, and opened up through Zoom a room that you can go into each evening and just kind of talk with other DJs. It's not always about DJing. It's like probably 30% DJing. The rest of it's everything from cars, food, everything. And it's a place where you can go hang out. Robin, go ahead. She just shared or somebody just shared the link. That's the link, DJNTV.com/chill. And you can go there each evening after 9 p.m. and just kind of 9 p.m. Eastern time and just kind of hang out and talk with other DJs. So if you are like me, where you are alone, you want some people just to network off of and mentor and be mentored, that's a good place too. It's something that, we're there with people from all over the world. And we're in the 90s when you and I started, John, the early 80s. If that person wasn't within driving distance, you weren't going to touch base with them.
Yeah, because we had ICQ. Yeah,
I totally forgot. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that stuff.
That was our way of communicating back then.
I remember having this one program, and it would do the what was the one chat that was AOL chat, and like 2 or 3 other ones where it would merge all of them, so you could be on all of them with one program. And I thought I was the coolest guy in the world because I could be on all of them from one program. But it's different now because, like I said, we're in touch different parts of the world right now, where back then it just wasn't the same.
Exactly.
It's as we're there, and even most of the people now are doing it from a phone, so they could be sitting in a chair somewhere, not even at a desktop like we used to have to do. You could be driving in your car, networking with people, everything. And it's changed a lot. So I want to touch on some topics here. We will answer some questions here in a little bit. But I want to touch on some topics that have to, in my opinion, they're qualities of a good mentor. And I want you to expand on them if you want to or not. It's up to you. First one was obviously about being a friend before a mentor. The next one is one that you touched on because of the 90s. You said everybody was kind of cutthroat, is the willingness to share knowledge. Tell me, in your opinion, how that makes a good mentor about sharing knowledge and not holding stuff back. I mean,
I think that there's a difference between a mentor and a teacher, for one thing, and sharing knowledge. A teacher can go and here's the knowledge, and you can either take it or whatever. I think a mentor, where it's a little bit different, and not a school teacher, but like somebody speaking at a convention is what I'm referring to as a teacher there. As a mentor, they have knowledge, and they're going to their ultimate goal is to give you the knowledge in a way that you will be able to utilize it. And I think that's probably the biggest difference. A teacher is going to they're going to teach you how to do Facebook ads, and if you get it or not, that's not a big deal. As a mentor, my goal is to get you to a higher level of success with whatever you're doing. So
right.
having the knowledge that I have and conveying as much of it as I possibly can in a way that you're going to be successful with it is ultimate in that relationship of the mentor and mentee.
An area that I want to touch on with that, I've always looked at, because I've had different people in life, different jobs that I've had, that would say something like, "Oh, I'm not going to share all my secrets with you. I got to keep some to stay ahead." And a good mentor doesn't hold back, in my opinion, because if you're really that good and that knowledgeable, you don't have to worry about someone else taking your job, because, if they took your job, then either they underbid you, which goes back to what we were at before, or they're just better than you. And a good mentor would realize when their student is excelling and maybe even push them towards another mentor that has more experience.
Very true. Very, very true. And that happens quite a bit when you get to a point where a mentor says, I've gotten you where you can to here. You're now going in a direction that's not in my skill set. And a mature mentor will be able to say that comfortably and say, I love you, and I want the best for you, and I want you to talk to this person. I think they can take you to that next level.
Right. Which takes me to the next one on the list: trust their honest feedback, which I think that is, to being able to trust someone telling you, "Hey, you didn't do that right," and not take that as an insult and take that as a guidance is. You have to build that trust, and that, again, back to the friendship. I mean, you feel that with the trust and sharing knowledge, trusting what someone tells you.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, if you don't, the other side to that is you have to be able to accept some criticism. You're going to get a little bit of that. You're going to get some tough love, and if you don't get tough love once in a while from your mentor, they're back. They've fallen into the teacher category probably more than they are a mentor. So. Taking that and understanding it's part of the process. As bodybuilders find out, you have to damage the muscle. You have to kind of beat it up a little bit in order for it to grow and become bigger. It's kind of the same thing in life a little bit.
Yeah. This is one I took a note on, and I think it's important that you don't necessarily have to agree with the other person, but you have to at least be able to see their vision of where they want to take their career. So you could be a wedding person and love weddings and never want to do anything but weddings, but you could have someone that wants to go down a road of something else, and you can still mentor them, whether it be on the DJ side, on the personal side, on the business side, but you still have to be able to see their vision, because if you can't understand, like if you go, I don't know why anybody would want to do that, I don't think you could be a very good mentor. Do you?
I would agree. You can't be a good mentor, and the vision that you have for what you want to do, I may not be able to see myself in that role. That doesn't mean I couldn't maybe make some suggestions and help you think through processes and be that resource, but
good sounding board.
A sounding board, yes. That's going to be getting back to giving you that feedback, an honest feedback of what that sounding those situations are. But there's so many times when people have been like, "Oh, you shouldn't do it that way. That's silly going to the left. You should be doing everything this way and going to the right." And it's like, but my dream is over here.
Right. Yeah. The next one I want you to expand upon into a commercial of any sort you want to. I put on there that both people have to value ongoing learning, and DJNTV.
Yeah, that is certainly one of that. But I think that when you're talking in a mentor relationship, I think there's got to be learning, but there has to be some evaluation of what you're learning. And that's really to a point. There's the chill room after is almost filling that role for a lot of people, is that they can go and they can watch a show and then they can talk about it afterwards and say, what did you think of that? And help to flesh out their thoughts and feelings and emotions behind some of these things. I think that's a big part. Continuing education, it's always, being a sponge and learning from all different sources is great. But to be able to take information and apply it, that's where the mentor really comes into being able to help you. And I've done this where we've had a book that a DJ and I, we read through a book together. And it's like, okay, we're going to read through 2 chapters and we'll talk about it next week. Things such as that is where you're able to expand your educational knowledge and then help to understand what you're reading and how you can apply is where the value really comes when it comes to education. There's a lot of people who will go and watch every video we've ever done, and they get so much that they just forget they forgot all the stuff in the beginning.
Yeah.
So it can be overwhelming. So
yeah, in my DJ classes, I always tell the people I could show you 100 times, but you're going to have to do it 1,000 before you get it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of a way that you can take in all the knowledge you want, but unless there's that application of it, it's kind of, that's where the back and forth goes, because you try it 3 or 4 times, and you're like, I can't do it like you're doing it, and then you go back to them, hey, I tried this. How did you do that? And then you can break it down a little bit further as to where, a teacher would just be like,
Here it is.
or an influencer. Here's my video.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm guilty of that, because people will ask me questions. I'm not going to lie, that I'll just send them a link to a video, because I like the answer sometimes is way too long to me being able to type out. So if you've ever sent me a question and I just send you a link, do not be offended by that. Just simply take that as what it is there's a link for information.
And I think that's one of the things that people may sometimes forget, is that typically this year's been an off year, but when DJs were working and there would be problems arising, there were days where I'd have a half a dozen people who are reaching out via phone or via message, and they need to have some time spent with them. They've got some situations and they're just pulling their hair out. They've watched a video and they're like, hey, could you spare some time for me? And you hate to say no. That's something, it's like you always want to be there and you always want to try to help. But it also becomes a day is gone. Boom.
Yeah.
With that. So there's times where when folks are like, well, gosh, you just sent me a link and that's it. It's like, we have to pick and choose where we invest our time. And not that we don't want to invest time with a person, but obviously we don't have that relationship that MJ started talking about. Once we have that relationship,
right,
and we know somebody, then it's easier for me to be able to help and give advice rather than just a true or false type answer, which is really kind of when we give a link, that's pretty much what that is.
Yeah, because it's not that I don't want to help you. It's the question you're asking me. If you would have typed the exact same thing into Google, you could have gotten 100 answers, 12 videos, and a step-by-step instruction. So I'm kind of like, I can tell the person didn't make any effort to figure it out themselves. They just had a question, immediately came to me with the question. And that's what I want you to do, is even when I'm doing the DJ classes that I do, I want you to be self-sufficient. Mm-hmm. And that's including trying to figure things out. Like, one of the things that we had talked a few years ago about was that this generation, next generation of DJs aren't going as much to the expos. They're learning from online, and someone else goes, well, how can you learn from online? People are just throwing up random videos. It's really no thing, but they have the ability to look at 100 videos and then take the parts they like from 100 of those and put them into something they like. And that in its own learning is a skill that if you show me that you're willing to put all that in, and then once you do all that, you still have questions, then absolutely, I'll help you navigate through all that. But if you don't even bother looking, you're going to get a link,
And I think you mentioned the expos, and that the way there was that training option was there, which I don't think we're going to see that for quite a time. This might be 2 or 3 years, and there's an outside chance we may never see that world come back again. I think what you're going to find is those training opportunities we had at the expos, it's going to be, instead of Jay Brannon doing a mixing presentation on the new controller to a room of 500 people, Jay Brannon's going to reach out to 10 people or 10 people, and he's going to spend time and guide them type of a situation. That instead of a Bill Herman on stage talking to 300 people, there's going to be probably 10 people that Bill Herman's going to pour himself into for over a period of months that are his mentees. And I think that's going to really be the world that we go into, because the younger generation seems to, they've researched, they've watched the videos. Now they have specific areas and specific questions that they need help in. And I think that they're not afraid to go ask someone. I've not run into that experience where someone's come up and said, I hate to bother you. Well, some people that are our age, but younger people are like, hey, do you got a moment? I'd love to ask some questions. And they're just like, boom, right there, right out there.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's grab a coffee and talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got 2 more things left on here, and then we can take some questions. We've got a very active chat room tonight. Like I said, you're seeing the other side of the questions, the chat from the people in Facebook and stuff that I'm not. So I apologize, Facebook. John's going to be watching those questions. I'm going to try to keep attuned to the YouTube ones. But my last 2 is, we already covered constructive feedback, being able to accept it and give it. And the last one is something that I think is important. It's way beyond any knowledge passing back and forth. And I just noted it as checking in with. And that's nothing more than going, hey, how's it going? Mm-hmm. And you're checking stress levels, you're checking growth levels, you're checking progress. And it's not necessarily a passing of information back and forth, but that's where the relationship where you're just checking in on somebody. Hey, how's this week going? Or
right.
How'd that project go?
Yeah, that accountability thing, I think, is another huge factor between separating a teaching situation and a mentoring situation. That mentor has a investment in you, and they want to see you succeed. And they are going to, if they do it and do it right, they will reach out and say, hey, how's it going? Hey, did that project, did you get that? Did you, or here's something kind of cool that I think you'd find interesting, and share something, and then follow up and say, hey, did you get a chance to look at that? What did you think of it? What did you the old thing, Mike Walter, and I'm sure others have talked about this of he was, when he's mentoring or helping somebody, giving them a book and then writing on page 25 for people to talk about that and say, hey, when you get here, give me a call because I want to talk to you about this. Things such as that, we're showing that you're investing in them, because when they hit 25, you're going to take them out for lunch and you're going to talk about that type of thing. That's kind of what a mentor does over, here's the book, read it, and I don't really care if you read it or not, but there's the book, I gave it to you type of a situation.
Right. Yeah. That's gold right there. When you have a mentor that's willing to do that, where they do give you information, but they know ahead of time that you're going to have questions, and they're making themselves available. Like way before you get there, they're making sure they let you know, when you get to this point, I'm here for you. Mm-hmm. And that's like an anchor point that, that helps the longevity. Sometimes when we get overburdened, we have to come back to our anchor point, and start over again. And that's beautiful. So we're going to try to take some questions. John, at any point, you can interject anything that you felt that I haven't covered here. There is a whole lot of chatting going on tonight, and I appreciate it. Again, love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah, great.
One of the questions that I did see come across there, and I kind of think we covered, it said, do you have to be more talented than the person you're mentoring? And again, my answer to that was, does your DJ mentor have to be better DJ skills than you, or can someone at your level that is willing to give you honest feedback be a mentor? You can absolutely be a mentor. My friend Todd used to have a definition of teacher. A teacher, anybody can be a teacher. All you have to know is more than your student.
Mm-hmm. Just had that discussion today with a teacher. It's like, yep, you just have to be one lesson ahead.
Yeah. So, oftentimes, I mean, how many parents who have helped their kids through, maybe some sort of math have done that, where they've prepared ahead just to be able to help, and for no other reason. Go ahead, if you have any questions, shout them out here, both in the chat, whether you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube. Holla at us. We're here for you.
David mentions, of course, that he got a copy of Mike Walter's book there with the history of music. So just let's kind of go on that. Mike gave me it's the Lonesome Dove series of I can't remember what one of the very first books in that series. It's been a number of years ago, but it's the biggest book I've ever seen as far as I've read. And he gave me this book, as well, old Western book. He goes, John, I think you'll like this book. And I had heard him talk about that whole writing something on a page. So I've got this book of, I don't know, 2,000 pages or whatever it was. I don't remember exactly what it was. And I'm thinking to myself, he did it somewhere in here, didn't he? He wrote on here. And if I don't find where he wrote that. So I start the book, and it's a Western, and I just couldn't get into it. I'm a pretty voracious reader when it comes to like Star Wars and sci-fi, but I could not get into it. So the first 100 pages, it's like, oh, this sucks. But I got to keep going because it's going to be there, I'm sure of it. Second 100 pages, it still sucked. Took until I was into the 300 pages in, and then I was hooked.
Wow.
Turned out that he didn't write a darn thing in the book, though.
Just little special motivation there.
It was one of those things I just like, I know it is. And I fanned through that thing a few times. It's like, how many pages are in this book? It's like never.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, it was good.
That's cool.
That was funny, but
yeah.
But after that, then I went and bought the other books in the series, and I think I've actually gone through and I've read that series like 3 or 4 times over the years since.
Right. My grandfather was really big on the Western books. What was the big writer that was?
There's a Louis L'Amour was a big one.
As soon as I hear it, I'd know it, but he loved his books. He would always read his. I can't think of it. I wish I could.
Yeah, Larry McMurtry was, I believe, who did that series, the Lonesome Dove series.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So chat room, what's going on? If you have any questions about this or comments, we're here for you. We've gone just about 37 minutes, which is good. I hope that you guys like these shows. And like I said, I want to try to keep them interesting. I tried to have Jay on a couple weeks ago. We had some issues. I think I've worked some of them out. I was telling John about that before the show. Had to do a little bit of finagling with some stuff, but I think we're going to be able to have more guests on. Let me know if you like the guest. Let me know if you like it with just me. Let me know if you like it with the decks back there, or you like here at the desk. I think I'd like to switch it up because it makes the show multi-dimensional, and it's not just me yammering for 40 minutes, which, trust me, I don't have any problem doing that. It flows. But tell me what you like.
So MJ, let's talk a little bit about, if I'm looking for a mentor, someone to mentor me, what am I going to be looking for from that mentor? I mean, we talked about a lot of things, but if you're going to approach someone and say, hey, I'd like to, do you come right out and do that? How would you in essence initiate that?
Well, I've done that. I think the first thing you have to do is, in my opinion, again, I don't think there's a necessarily right with this, because the path to your final place in life is never like you plan it to be. So don't be upset if your path that you have planned out doesn't go right. I always tell people I'm writing a book about creativity, and in the book about creativity, just because once you create something, it's not what you imagine doesn't mean it's not good, because someone else could look at it and think it's the most wonderful thing in the world. So just creating, even though what you create is maybe not what you wanted to create, is still something that's beautifully created. Mm-hmm. So that path getting you there, first thing and first, don't worry if it goes astray several times. But I would pick someone who has done or is doing what I want to accomplish first off. And then I would try to build a friendship with them before I ask them a question. Can I come hang out? Or, I've had different DJs that I wanted to learn from or see from, and I will just make sure a night that I have off, I don't lounge about. I go where they are and hang out with them for the night. For no reason, just to hang out,
Sure.
Talk to them. Hey, you need a drink? I'll go get you a drink, sort of thing. Just keep it that way. And over time, you begin to build a rapport with them, and they then are willing to open up with you when you do have questions. But that's my route with it first, is that you initiate the friendship first. Mm-hmm. If it's a person that is not physically near you and you want to converse with them, I've done this where I'll just send someone a message and say, caught your thing the other night or saw your post. Love it. I love how that you do these things. And there was a person that I still talk with that she made a post that had nothing to do with DJing. She's a very talented DJ. And I made a comment about the fact that I kind of saw her being a mentorish type post. Okay. And I looked at that and I said, okay, I like that. And I want to make sure she knows that I'm seeing beyond her, that she's making a special effort. And I made the comment about, I really see you making a special effort. You always put the work in. And I appreciate seeing people do that. And that's what began a conversation, me telling her that she's putting the work in, that I see her doing that. And that's the way I think you do it, is you start a conversation, whether it be online, that was online, or in person. You go to that person and you strike up the friendship.
And I think in a situation like that particular instance is that you could have strike up the conversation and have a dialogue back and forth, maybe ask a few questions. And that might be the extent of that relationship. It doesn't mean that there's a mentorship there, because generally that yes, there's a back and forth within this little experience, but it's not. A mentorship also has to have a level of time, that it has to be more than a 1 week type of a thing. Yeah, I suppose in some situations it could be, but really that mentorship, there has to be the back and forth, the relationship building, the solution, the coming up with solutions and such. And then to a point, there almost has to be that follow up, or that quiz at the end where they can hold you accountable to whatever it is. Yeah. I think that's all part of it. And if it doesn't have that whole gamut, I think it's, maybe it's a shared a teaching moment. It might be just asking a couple of questions and getting some information and moving on, whatever. But that whole mentorship is really encompassing all of those different aspects to really be successful, I think.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest areas that if you're willing to go to the person, start up the conversation and initiate that relationship before the mentorship, you really are going to have to make sure they're a person that you can trust when they give you information. Because if you don't, and they give you information, that's going to be very confusing to you inside, to have someone that you're looking towards for information. They give you information and then you don't know whether you should do it or not.
Right.
That's going to make you get stuck in the mud. So build that friendship first, so you get to know them and find out if they are a person that you want to learn from. Because I've had people that wanted to mentor me, and they're people who cause a lot of problems, party really hard, all that kind of stuff. And I just don't want that in my life. And they wanted to really be a part of what I'm doing, help me, teach me, tag along. And I just didn't want to be where they were at, party places, alcohol, drugs and stuff. I just didn't want to have anything to do with. So I've had people that want to mentor me that I'm like, thank you, appreciate it. I didn't say those words, but it was that way to me. It was like, I really appreciate that, but no, I'm going to,
that's great. A great piece of advice there is that part of the mentorship is you want to make sure that person is someone you want to be seen with, or someone you want to be, that you could, I don't want to say emulate, but someone that you're going to be able to respect across the board.
Feather in a way. Yeah. Respect would be a better way to say it.
I think that's the big thing. And in my, with working with a lot of different people, not as a mentor, me mentor, them mentee, but just as anyone you're working with, you like to surround yourself with good people. And that's when it gets to having, somebody says, hey, John, I want to do something, whatever, I start searching, going to Facebook and looking back and going and stalking them, pretty much is what you do.
Yeah.
And you find sometimes where it's like, ooh.
Yeah. I've had people like, hey, let's do a show together, or let's do an event together. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't. And sometimes, you're looking at it, it's like, okay, the old, I can change them.
No.
Because that, how well that works. But
as an adult, let me tell you about that. If you are a younger person who thinks that you can change another person, you can't. You might be able to influence them. Yep. You might be able to encourage them, but they are the only people in charge of their own change. And if they're not willing or wanting to, that's their right to not be willing to or wanting to. It's America.
It is.
That's the thing about it, is you don't have to.
And I think that kind of fits in, that as a mentor, that you have to be selective too. You've got to be able to look and see with the person who are they wanting to actually make a change, or is this something that's an ongoing? They've always got this complaint.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe it. Every time I drink my coffee, I get this stabbing pain in my eye. Well, take the spoon out. I like my spoon there. I just don't understand. Every time I'm drinking my coffee, I'm getting this pain in my eye. There's a lot of people like that, and you got to be able to.
I have a younger guy that I try to help, and I check in with him and do all these things to reach out. If he's watching tonight, I apologize, but there are times that he's done stuff that I've just kind of questioned him and going, I can't help you there. I'm not comfortable with that, and I've literally said that to them. You realize what you just asked me there, and then, but there's a friendship there, because even though I'm saying no to them, we're still friends.
Yeah.
So that's where I know the friendship is there no matter what, that I do want to help, but I know there are times that this person's going to be very bullheaded, very headstrong, and I'm just not going to put the effort in, because I know I'm going to wait until they trip and go, hey, what'd I trip on? Then I'll tell them.
Yeah.
But I know if I tell them, watch that, they're going to be like, I got this.
Yeah, exactly. What do you know?
Yeah. I'm like, no, I've just literally been DJing longer than you've been alive. I don't know anything. But I know that sounds very egotistical, but trust me, time changes you as an adult. For those of you who are younger, trust me when I say, as you hit 30-ish, the things that you hold on to tightly, like you're never going to let go, just aren't as important anymore.
No, isn't that
and there's
truth?
nothing wrong with that. That's the thing you have to accept. And that's one of the things I've learned in life, is never argue with the 22-year-old.
Yeah, it doesn't get you anywhere.
You can't win.
Matt's got a question here. It's not related to our topic tonight, but we'll hit that. Matt's question for those of you watching on Facebook. You're doing DJing weddings and insurance. Do you need to have insurance to do it? I'm going to say maybe. And I say this because if you are living in an apartment, you have no overhead or no real big assets, and you're okay with your speakers falling on someone. Not that you're okay with that, but the worst thing, somebody's going to sue you if they get hurt on your equipment. If you don't have anything, there's nothing for them to go after. So they could maybe garnish wages if you had another job, but I mean, technically there's nothing there. So that's why a lot of DJs choose not to be insured. The responsible way of doing it would be to have liability insurance for any injuries that could happen to your guests. Now, in that particular situation, or with the liability, it used to be you'd have to go and buy a year's worth of liability insurance, and it was about $200, let's call it that. There are so many insurance companies out there that you can buy insurance by the month, you can buy it by the day, or you can buy it by the year. In that industry right now, the big push is to go to a monthly subscription insurance policy. If you need insurance for one event, just go buy something short term. It's the best way to do it. Do you have to? No, you can still do a lot of events. Some venues are now requiring proof of insurance, which gets you back to needing it. But for most people, the responsible way would be to have liability insurance.
I had a friend who did have insurance, but he got hired to do a very large college homecoming, and they required more than he had, because I think he had $2 million and they wanted $3 million. So he went and upped it for a month, had to show them that he upped it, and that just that 1 month he paid the extra for the other one so he could have the gig, and he put that additional pay into their charge. So he made sure that it was on their fee. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful way to do it. But yeah, there are some colleges, some corporate events now, and I've run into a couple of venues in Minnesota here that in order to perform there, you need to have proof of insurance. Sometimes some of them will ask that they are listed as an additional insured on your, and that happens. Many of the insurances that are online that you can purchase, you can do that online. So you could Friday at 7 p.m. that you could go digit it and have it ready for Saturday. Not a problem.
Yeah. Good one. I never heard someone say no. That's a good way of looking at it. That's cool.
And it is. I mean, the reality is that if somebody's doing two events a year and they live in an apartment, they basically are 19 years, 20 years old, and they have nothing for assets, you're just risking some stress, and hopefully nothing ever happens, and most of the time they don't. It's all that, do I need to have insurance on my car? Well, technically, legally, yes, you do, but there's a lot of people who don't. It's a crazy world we live in, I tell you.
Yeah. Cool. That's one of the things I like about the show is that we cover so much. We really do. That's why it's called Music and Mixing, because originally the show was oriented towards the mix DJ. But I think the better definition of it now is music and mixing is that it covers everything in what we do. It's not just this, it's this and this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And I think that's in different times and different days, we need to, like I do on the show, is I try to cover quite a broad range of topics. And today's was one that just kind of came to me.
Yeah,
like I said, a lot of mine come from questions you guys asked. So if you have any questions, hit me up afterwards. I'm on all the social medias. If you have a topic idea, bring it to me, because the majority of my shows come from you guys asking questions. But today, when I was sitting down, I'm like, what can I do this week? And I started thinking about the mentor thing. And I'm like, when I started thinking about the people that had mentored me, and then I started thinking about people that I'm mentoring, and then the relationship that I've had with the people that mentored me 20 years ago, where we're still friends. And I'm like, well, this can be a very complex thing that everybody, no matter you're a full-time DJ, part-time DJ, wedding DJ, mobile DJ, club DJ, it doesn't matter. A human being that's not even in the DJ world. Mentors for anything, personal life, stress are all important, because at the end of every one of my shows, John, I always try to encourage the people that in this crazy world that we're in right now, and things are getting crazier, and we have no idea what the future is going to be. The only way we're going to get through this is that if we treat each other with kindness, that we reach out to each other, we help each other, we be there for each other. And that's what that mentoring thing can be. Is way beyond, I know more than you do. It's just, do you need help? That's all it can be to. And that's what I think we need to do across the board beyond the DJ world, is be willing to look at someone who is nothing like you, that maybe has a completely different opinion about things than you do, but you still look at them as a valuable human being, and you care for them as a valuable human being. And that will change the world if people looked at each other that way.
For sure. That it would.
So any other questions, or are we calling it a night, John?
I think we're good. I think we wrap her up here. We've made our 50 minutes, so.
Cool. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. As I mentioned, please, I'm probably going to go into the chat room, the chill out room after this tonight, so I'll hang out with you guys there. If you have any questions about future topics, let me know. I do teach the DJ classes, both in the actual DJing of mixing. I do classes where I can help you with your software, with your hardware, with all kinds of stuff. They can be mixed into the same class. So if you have any questions about that, I teach those online and do them. And if you need references, I have several people that can do references and tell you what they've learned and stuff like that. But definitely contact me on that. John's got all kinds of shows that coming up. You have the DJ Insider area. I'm going to let you tell them real quick about the DJ Insider area and all the education there, and then you can close this out for the day.
Yeah, we've got our DJNTV where we have our convention series videos, which are members-only videos. And probably the coolest thing with our DJNTV Insiders is we've got a Facebook group where people can go and ask questions in a safe environment and build those relationships with fellow DJs. And, of course, that carries over into the chill room. So a lot of the people who support what we do here on DJNTV are involved with the Insiders and the Facebook group as well as this. So it's a good area. Check that out. We'll be doing next year. We're going to be actually doing 3 virtual expos, which are only available to the people who are involved with the DJNTV Insider area. So we just finished one up here in October, and we'll have more coming up in 2021.
Excellent.
So it's time to say goodnight.
Yeah. I'll let you close this out. Thank you guys again.
Yep. Thank you guys for being with us tonight. Have a great week. We'll be back again next Monday night. I'm not even sure what we're doing next week for shows, because between now and then, it's going to seem like a literal lifetime. So we'll catch you next Monday night. Good night, everybody.